Hello, I'm Mark, and welcome to part 1 of my video series on how to make a data-driven and dynamic spawn controller for your Unreal Engine games. So, as stated in the introductory video to this series, this video is going to be all about data structures needed for our spawn control system. So, we have a lot of structures to develop today, so let's get started. So, first off, I'm going to be doing this in C++, or in a C++ project. So, for you following along, just go to Games, Third Person, C++, Desktop. I'm choosing Scalable, and then yes, we want the startup content. Just gives us some props to play with when we get to part 3, when we start building out some of these scenarios. All right, and then once you've got all that set up, just give your project a name, and then hit the Create button, and you should get something like this come up. So I'm just going to move that off. All right, so first off, we're going to build out all the data table structures that we need for the table. And then after that, we'll create all of the structures needed for the save system, since we're going to build this so that it's save system ready. Okay, so to get started, let's go into the content drawer and see what's already been built for us. So we have some content here. We're not going to be doing much with the content, with the blueprint content for this video. So we'll be working mostly in the C++ classes. And if you come down here, you can see under here I've got dynamic spawn, which is the name of the project. And as you can see, it's created 2 classes for us, which is the character class and the game mode. All right, so let's go ahead and start building out our data structures. So to do that, under the folder, we're going to go ahead and hit right-click, say New C++ class. Now, Unreal Engine doesn't have any structure templates to generate these structures. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come up to use the None templates, and then we'll take this class and turn it into a struct. So we'll select None. We'll hit Next. I'm going to hit Public, so I can take advantage of the public-private folder structure in Visual Studio, and we'll go ahead and generate our first struct, and that is going to be our spawned scene actors. So this is the static part of the static pieces that we can spawn in, so we can bring in our AIs that are going to do something, but we can also bring in some scenery pieces too, just to kind of add some variety. So that's the spawn scene actors. Under public, let's go ahead and create the class. So this being the first structure that we'll be putting into the project, usually takes Unreal Engine a little bit longer to build. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll be lucky and it'll compile pretty quick. Alright, I got lucky today. So here we are, and we're going to say reload all. And I'm just going to get rid of this little silly thing here. Alright, so this is what it's generated, and this is a class, but we want a struct. So to do that, we need to do something. We need to just make some changes real quick. So first off, we're going to add this generated.h and map that to the name of the .h file that's going to be having our struct in there. I'm going to then add this uStruct blueprint type, so this structure will be visible within the editor. Going to convert it to a struct, and Unreal likes to put a prefix of f in front of all of its structs. So we'll just follow the naming convention. And lastly, because we have this generated.h, we need to add the generated body macro right there. All right, so now this is just an empty struct. Let's go ahead and just fix this real quick. Just gonna take that out. And we'll just fix this too. All right. Okay, doke. So let's go ahead and add some attributes to our struct. So I'm just going to copy them all over, and So here they are. These are the basic ones which I'm just using for the scene actor. One, I've got an ftext actor name. This is just purely so that I know what this is. We're not going to use this. It's just purely for, metadata in the table. Then you can see that we have this T subclass of, and then you can see these within the Pac-Man braces. We have a class of a actor, and this will allow us to map a actor class or an actor blueprints into this table. So this can act as this will be a reference for us to be able to then pull that information in programmatically from our spawn controller. Next, I've got a map to transform point. It's going to be set to true, and then we have the transform point, which is by default 0, which is the first element in any transform point array. And this will make a little bit more sense when we get to part 2, when we go ahead and create the component. But we're just putting all this information up front so we can take advantage of it when we get there. All right, so everything looks good. Before I add another class / structure, I'm just going to compile it to make sure there are no errors. All right, looks good. So let's go ahead and add our next struct. So I'm just going to go ahead and close the implementation file, since all we have is just this information here. So the next one is going to be our spawned pawns. So let's go back to the editor, go back to C++ classes, go into the folder. So Unreal Engine doesn't seem to be able, or it doesn't seem to register any custom structures that we make. It'll register classes, so when we create our class component, it'll show up here, but structures, it doesn't seem to add it to the editor. But they are there, they're in the Visual Studio, and the editor will pick it up when you start working within blueprints. It just doesn't add it into this tray down here. So don't panic if you don't see it. They are there. So again, hit New, Class, None, hit Next. Make sure I've got the public folder selected. And this is going to be my spawned pawns, as in chess piece pawn. And let's go ahead and create the class. Uh-oh. I'm just going to go ahead and just recompile. And it goes away. Alrighty. So here's our spawned pawn. Again, we need to just convert this over to from a class to a struct. So to do that, again, this is a base structure, so we're just going to add the generate file. Gonna add our generate body here. Actually, let's make sure. Nope, you did add that there. Okay. All right. We need to put the F there and there, just to satisfy that. Make these structs. And go ahead and put this there. All right, so let's just go and fix this real quick. Remove that. And we'll fix this. Yeah, just double check that, make sure everything looks good there. Yeah. Make sure everything looks good here. All right, so now that we've fixed the struct, let's go ahead and add our attributes. And those attributes are right here. So again, I've got a little ftext, which is the name. Again, this is just purely for housekeeping, so when I'm on the table I can put something there so I know what I'm looking at. We have the min size and the max size. This will allow us to dynamically generate a number of these pawn classes versus just one. So again, if I just want one, it's a min size of one, max size of one. But if I want to have more than one, then I can use a min size. What is the minimum number? It could be 1, between 1 and 6, or it could be between 2 and 4. It's up to you. But that allows us to create some randomness in that. Again, we're going to use this T subclass of so that we can link in pawn classes, blueprints or classes, and reference them in the table directly. And then again, we have the map to transform. This time I'm going to set this to false so that when we're in the table we have to flip the switch. And then there's the transform point ID. Again, this is 0. If this is set to false, we'll ignore this. Then we have the spawn group radius. This is just, again, if we're spawning around a transform, or if we're spawning around the actor, the host class that that our component will be in, then it will use this as the maximum radius. And then we have random location. So if we're set to random location, it will use this. If it's not set to random location is set to false, then it will use the exact location of either the spawn actor class or the transform that we're mapping it to. And then random rotation. Again, if it's set to true, it will randomly pick an angle between 0 and 360 degrees. Otherwise, if it's set to false, it will use the transform's rotation point or the actor's rotation point that is hosting the spawn controller. So that's that. That looks good. I'm just going to go ahead and minimize that. I'm just going to go save, make sure everything's saved. And then I'm just going to go ahead and just do a compile, make sure everything compiles cleanly before we add the next structure. Alright, so again, I'm just going to come in here, I'm going to right click, go to new class, none. We're going to hit next. Make sure that the public folder is set. And this one is going to be our groups structure. So I like to create a concept of groups. That way you could have multiple groups of these characters or vehicles spawning in. So that way you could have, Group A and Group B, and Group A could be of Faction A and Group B could be of Faction B. And this kind of keeps them all separate. And then if you wanted to have additional data and logic, so you could maybe have them spawn in and fight each other. It's up to you on what you want to do. So this is just allows me to separate them in the table, which will allow us to then separate it when we actually spawn it out. So public, spawn groups. All right, everything looks good. Let's go ahead and create. Let it do its thing. It's compiling. Yay, good compile. All right, so we're going to go to reload. All right, so here again, let's go ahead and convert this. So to do that, we're going to add the generate file, but this time we're also going to add the spawn pawns, which is our structure up here, since this will be referencing that struct. We'll make this a struct. We will add the prefix and the prefix. We will also add the tag so that this struct is visible within the blueprints of the editor. And I'm also going to add the generate body. Let's go fix these green squigglies again. Okay, so there it is. So there's the basic setup. So let's go ahead and add the attributes. And this is just simple. It's just the name of the group, again, ftext, and then I'm just going to use an array of type spawned pawns, and that's the list. And so each one of these elements in there, and so this one is a group, and so we would then create a group 1, group 2, group 3, and then these are all of these types of pawns or characters that we can spawn out within that scenario. Alright, everything's good. Hit save. That looks good. Just make sure everything's clean. I'm just going to do one more compile, make sure everything looks good. And then that should do it for the structures. So now we just need to create the table row structure that's going to host all these other little structures. Alright, so again, to do that, we're going to come down C++. Let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger, maybe. Come here. I'm going to right click, new class, empty class. Nope. Going to go none, my mistake. Next, make sure that we have the public folder. And I'm going to select row. So I always, whenever I'm creating data table row structures, I always like to put a suffix of row. That way it's a little bit easier for me to find it. And again, when I'm looking through my code, I know exactly what it is just by looking at the name or what it's going to be used for. So everything looks good. I'm going to hit create class. And we'll go ahead and create the row. So this is the actual row which will be sitting in the table, that will be sitting in the data table. Alrighty, so again, we'll come back, come into here, we'll say reload all. Alright, let's go ahead and convert this. So this is going to have a few more includes. So the first one is the engine table. So this is what the include that we need in order to convert this from just a simple structure into a table structure. So then next, I'm just going to go ahead and put our struct in. I'm just going to add the generate body right now, and then let's convert this from a class to a struct. And put the prefixer in. Don't want to forget that. Alright, so now that we have all that information there, everything looks good. So the last thing we need to do to make sure that this becomes a data table row structure is to just add the public f table row base, which is located up here. So what this does is it's going to say, when we create this, it's going to inherit from this, so it'll add all the other information that Unreal Engine needs to turn into a table, and then we can go ahead and add our custom attributes right down under the public. Oh, let's go ahead and fix these green squigglies first. Get this out of the way. Okay. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and add the attributes here. So here I've got an ftext for the scenario name, and then I've got an ftext for the scenario description. Just again, housekeeping. So when I'm creating a table, I can give it a quick name, and then I can have a more detailed description in another field. Then what we have is we have two arrays. We have one which is the groups of the pawn/characters that we're going to be bringing in that we want to spawn, and then we have another one which is the scene pieces, which is on our actors. So that's it. So that's all the structures that we need to create our table. I'm just going to close that. So we have 1, 2, 3 structures, and then the row structure. So let's go ahead and compile that. So while we're at it, I'm also going to go ahead and create the save system data structures as well. that will be used by our save file. So that's compiled, complete. So again, let's just knock these out so we don't have to worry about data structures again for this project. So come to classes, dynamic, right click, new class, none, next, make sure that it's public. And so the first one I'm going to do is the spawned actor data. So this is the so anything that's usually that I like to put into a save system, I usually put a suffix of data on. Again, just a quick thing when I'm looking at classes to say, okay, I know what this is going to be working in. So spawn actor data, I'm just going to go ahead and try create class. Let it compile. Good compile. All right, so let's go ahead and convert this one over. And for this, we're going to put some includes up here. So again, this is going to be the spawned scene actors, which is the class we created over here. So we want a reference to that when we save it, because there's probably going to be configuration information, configuration information on there that we want to save in order to regenerate. I'm going to add the generate body. I'm also going to put the blueprint type, so the struct will be visible within the editor. I'll make it a struct, and we will put the prefix in. And let's fix these green squigglies. All right. Okay, so let's go add the attributes that we're going to need to put in here when we save a scene component. All right, so here we are. We've got the spawn scene actor, so we're just going to save that structure as is, and we're also going to save the location that we actually spawned it in on. So there it is, those two pieces of information. That's all we need for this struct. Looks good. I'm just going to go ahead and close that. Let's just do a quick compile, make sure it's all good. Okie doke. Alright, and then lastly, no, not lastly, I wish it was lastly. We still got two more structures to go. Lots of structures. Alright, so again, none, next, public, private. Alright, so that one was for actors. This is going to be for our character pawns. So there it is, public, public, create class. Let's make sure everything lines up. All right, everything built up. Oh, let's go back to our here, reload. So as you can see under the public folder, here are all our structures, and these are all our implementation files. So everything's lining up. All right, so again, let's make sure we got our headers in place. And our data types. Generate body, very important. And our constructor and our destructor are all referencing named correctly. Let's go ahead and fix the squigglies. Fixed one, and we will fix the other. All right, and let's just separate that out just one more. Okie doke. So now let's go ahead and add some attributes here. So, all right. So just like with the spawned actor data, again, this is the actual character / pawn that we're going to be saving. So that's that structure here, so that we know what we're doing. So we have the information that we need to recreate. And then the transform, this is the actual location of where that pawn is. So if they're AI, right, and they're moving around, when we hit the save, we want the location of where they're moving or where they were last moved to. So that's what will go into there. And then we have and then I'm just adding an extra little attribute, which is the saved AI spawn group. So this will tell us which group this AI pawn was created for. So just some additional metadata. And you can add additional metadata to these structs depending on how much more information you need when creating your scenarios. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and close that. Again, just double check, give it another compile. All right, and then the last structure that we'll need for this project. All right, so last one. All right, new class. Say none. I'm going to go next. Make sure we've got public here. Spawn controller scenario data. All looks good. Let's go ahead and create. Alright, okay, good. It's all compiled. So, alright, so that's good. I'm going to reload all. Alright, and then finally, so this is the structure which will actually be residing within the save game class. So, again, let's convert this from a class to a struct. And again, we've got the data for scenario, for the scenes and the pawn classes. I'm going to add the uStruct type. And the generated body. I'm going to put the F prefix in. And then we'll just get rid of these green squigglies. So 1, 2, and get rid of the red squigglies. All right, once that's done, and just gonna go ahead and just put this in. So, don't need that. All right, so again, and all we're doing is we're just putting an array of saved pawn data and saved actor data, and that's there. Alrighty, so that should be it for all the classes. So let's just compile, make sure everything looks good. Yep, good, clean compile. All right, so finally, let's just finish up by just stubbing out that data table and that save class. And to do that, we're just going to come up to the content drawer. Now we can come back to content, and I'm just going to create a folder, and I'm going to call this. We'll just call it spawners, and then we'll just put it up here. And I'm just going to open it up. I'm going to right-click in that folder, and I'm going to come down to miscellaneous, and we're just going to go to data tables, and then under data tables we can do the drop down, and we should see there it is, spawn scenario row. We're going to click on that, and then we'll just give it a name. And that's what I'm going to call mine. And so then if we open this up, we'll just take a quick little peek. So as you can see, there's nothing in here right now, but all we have to do to add rows is just come up here, say add row, and there's our first row. This is our unique key, which we're not going to do much with in this example. But then, as you can see, we've got the pawn groups, and then we've got the scenario groups. So if I click a plus and a plus, so under here, as you can see, there's the actor name, there's the actor class. So here we can then start selecting whatever, and this can be both blueprints as well as actor classes. So that's good. Turned on, transform 1, and then if we come under here, we've got groups. So we'll just go ahead and put a plus in there. So this is group names. So we group A, and then under here we've got, we can call this the boss. And under here, I'm just going to go ahead and say BP third party, but you would reference whatever blueprint you want there. And then map to transform, turn that on, and then we can then start configuring how we want it to spawn in. And then if we want to add a second one, we can call this one minions. And we'll make that, we can then say spawn minimum of 2 and maximum of 4, but you can make that whatever you want. And since we don't have minions, we can just use that. And again, same idea, we can say map to transform. With the boss, we probably will want it to just map in on a transform, but you could have it map in randomly. And then here, minions, we'll just have, since it's a group, we'll just have it map in. So we'll go ahead in part 3 and actually create some scene components that we can add in down here, just to make it a little bit more fun. But again, we're just testing out the table. This will be, I don't know. Yeah, we'll figure it out. But yeah, a name, a description of what it's going to be. Then this is our configuration. So looks like everything's good there. I'm just going to hit save and we'll close the table. We'll come back to that in part 3. But it's good to know that the table's there. Okay, so next up is the save and loading. So to do that, we can create a new folder. I'm going to call it save system. And then under here, we're going to go blueprint class, and we're going to come down to all classes, go to save, save game. I'm going to select you, and I'm just going to call this BP my save game. And we can open this up and hit save. And then under variables, we're just going to go ahead and find our class that we created, which is the spawned control scenario data. So I'm just going to go there. And there it is. And we want to make that public and expose on spawn. Hit save, save, and we better give it a name. What do we want to call this? That's what we'll call it. All right, and that does it for our data structures. So what we've got is we've got a table structure set up, and we just stubbed out the table. We'll continue to build that out in part 3, and we've also just gone ahead and built the save game, which again we will then hook this in when we do part 3. But all of the structures are there, ready to be used. Okay. So now that we've created all the structures, we're now ready to move on to part 2 of the series, in which we will then go ahead and build out our Spawn Controller components. So if you like what I'm doing, please feel free to like and share my videos, as well as subscribe to my channel, and I will see you again in part 2. Thanks. Bye.